AskRe did by the Boys 51. What is the world's greatest unsolved mystery? The Indus script, also known as the Harappan script, produced by the Indus Valley Civilization. It was a huge civilization in northern India and Pakistan around 3300–1300 BC. It spanned more area than any other civilization at the time. Despite many attempts, the script has not yet been deciphered, but efforts are ongoing. Linear A for me. Satoshi Nakamoto. Regardless of what you think about Bitcoin, this person people invented and implemented it, holds a stash worth billions, and then just disappeared. None of their Bitcoin has moved since, and we would know the moment it does. We know which coins in the blockchain are theirs, and it's watched like a hawk. It's like something out of a movie, but it's 100% real. The current value of his stash is approx $42 billion. I always assumed he died after invention of the coin and before it went big. More interested in why there's so many deleted posts in here. Did they out information that wasn't meant to be sent? Just in case this isn't bots copy pasting comments from old posts. The brain. The organ that can understand the universe and manipulate it using advanced technology that was devised based on the understanding, but struggles to figure out how the brain actually functions in real time. We know some things like functions of certain areas and how its failure changes the way we experience life, but we can't explain the collective manifestation of those experiences, the consciousness. I used to think that the brain was the most wonderful organ in my body. Then I realized who was telling me this. Emo Phillips. What exactly was the wow signal? On a related note, I'm so sad that the bloop has been identified. Bronze Age collapse. Related, the identity of the Sea Peoples. The Strasbourg dancing plague in 1518. https://en.m.wiki.org/wiki/dancing_plague_of_1518 500 people danced for weeks until they died, and there is simply no explanation. I've heard it was a case of egotism, aka St. Antonin's fire, from the claviceps purpurea fungus. If the season is too wet, rye grain can be infected with ergot fungus, and if it is baked into bread, can cause hallucinations, delusions, gangrene, and death. Where is Genghis Khan buried? Didn't they use 10,000 horses to trample over the earth of his tomb to remove any trace? The Vila Incident. September 1979. An American Vila hotel spy satellite detects the distinct double flash of a nuclear detonation in the southern Indian Ocean. Total middle of nowhere. Unlike every other nuclear detonation in history, no nation claims responsibility. According to declassified documents, the CIA suspected it was a collaboration between Israel and South Africa. A captured KGB spy claimed the Soviets thought the same thing. How believable that is depends on how much you trust captured KGB spies. South Africa did have a nuclear weapons program that they eventually abandoned. Supposedly they never set one off. Israel has nukes. This is an open secret. Who did it? Was there a nuclear detonation at all, or did the spysat report a false positive? I bet Israel. And that would explain why the silence about it still holds sway. Hinterkaifeck murders, 1922 Germany, as far as unsolved crimes go. Deadass 100% the dad went fucking nuts and killed the families himself. He hung out alone for a couple of days and Sklettenbauer showed up. Sklettenbauer finds the bodies in the barn and arms himself with his trusty knife. Dad tries to attack Sklettenbauer, but Sklettenbauer kills dad in self-defense, dropping knife in the process. Sklettenbauer leaves, works on an alibi since he doesn't want to be blamed, then orchestrates discovery of the bodies. Never wants to be implicated or even reminded of it and keeps the truth to himself forever. I love me all things Voynich manuscript. My feeling is that it's a hoax, but I love watching people examine it and stuff. I think this post has created several new enthralling and known mysteries with all these removed comments. They're probably bots. How many seasons of the Curse of Oak Island will it take? That's our curse. Aside from the big, existential questions, I'd like to know the whole story of DB Cooper. There was an old TV show in the UK called Tales of the Unexpected that was presented by Roald Dahl. It was mostly adaptations of his short stories, but they did one based on DB Cooper. In it, the twist was it was a conspiracy from the pilots and cabin crew working together. They made up the story of the person, gave him a generic description, deliberately let a few notes go out of the plane to make it look like he jumped, and then went off with the money split. It's a fun theory, explains how the guy essentially vanished into thin air with no sightings since. Where Shelley Miscavige is, no one knows. I wouldn't say nobody, pretty sure David does. Alcatraz escape, did they survive? Family members of the guys have since come out with letters and photographs of them from South America. They lived for a long time. One of them died of cancer and had written to the authorities asking for medical care if he turned himself in. They ignored it. Would be pretty cool to know who Jack the Ripper was, or who killed the Black Dahlia, or whether the guy writing letters to the police as the Zodiac Killer was actually the one committing the murders. I'm putting my money on ancient aliens being the answer to all three. The Jack the Ripper theory I subscribe to is that it was a butcher and not a surgeon. A butcher would have the know-how to make those cuts and kills. If he was caught outside covered in blood, he would have a better alibi than a surgeon. Why hot dogs are sold in packs of 12 and hot dog buns in packs of 8. To incentivize you to buy 2 packs of hot dogs and 3 packs of buns. Removed. It was Max Headroom. His face was plain as day. Probably not the greatest, but the Isabella Gardner Museum art heist has always been a fascinating story. Lots of theories, but no leads on where the art went or why the individual pieces were chosen. Personal unsolved mystery: who burned down my friend's horse barn in 1983? Where consciousness comes from and where it goes. I know it's my own question, but I really want to know if George Mallory was the first person to summit Everest. If China found Irving's body with the camera, as evidence suggests, why won't they release the pictures? Or the Nat Geo drone footage? Why those get the real deal on fentanyl things look more like ads selling fentanyl than somewhere to go for information. My brain keeps auto-correcting them to say, get a real deal on fentanyl. The rhyming is part of why they're weird. Luca, last universal common ancestor. Would love if some explanation was also offered. And some constructive comments instead of cringy jokes. Malaysia Airline Flight MH370. Line 77 FAR 5244 BF99. Not the world's greatest perhaps, but I'd really like to know who shot Swedish Prime Minister Olof Palme in 1984. Most people point to Victor Gunnarsson, but when he was tried he got off on lack of evidence. I still remember the Forensic Files episode about Victor's death. It ended up being the ex of a woman Victor was seeing, Elsie Underwood, but recent findings claim Underwood was innocent. Could it be Elsie is just an unaware patsy for a big government conspiracy? Not necessarily the greatest mystery, but I would like to know the motivations of the Vegas shooter. We'd probably know more if they released that letter he left. What is the Vatican Library hiding away that keeps scholars from studying its collection? The Indus Valley Civilization and their script. Where are Juan Perón's hands? In 1987, The hands of deceased Argentine President Juan Perón were cut off of his body and stolen from his tomb along with his cap and sword. Members of his political party received a ransom note requesting money for their return. 6 men were arrested and 5 arraigned, but no charges were made against anyone. His hands are still lost and no person has still been charged. What Jesus was doing in the middle of his life. Oh, theologian, ecclesiastical historian here. There's a very good chance Jesus was involved in the ongoing construction projects in the city of Sepphoris. The word translated carpenter in most English versions of the Bible probably means something like builder rather than someone exclusively working wood. Herod Antipas conducted a number of projects in the city in the early 1st century, and Nazareth is only a short walk from there. As the major commercial center in Galilee, Jesus likely spent much of his life there, carrying on the trade. Not the biggest obviously, but who killed John Bennett Ramsey? There's a theory that her brother accidentally killed her, and the parents covered it up. This theory always bugs me. The Ramseys were millionaires, or close to it. They had a private pilot. When millionaire kids fuck up, their parents call lawyers. They don't involve themselves in a crime and stage a crime scene with their lifeless 6-year-old daughter's body and fake ransom notes. It's even worse when people think Burke being weird is evidence of his guilt, as if the murder of your little sister and millions of people blaming you for it when you're 9 years old wouldn't negatively affect a child's development. Polynesian expansion. Moana is based on this mystery. Humans spread from Taiwan to Hawaii and every spit of landing between Videt reckoning, then all of us a sudden these separate societies that had no means of communicating just stopped for 1,000 years and then started back up at the same time. We have no idea why they ever sailed over the horizon with no plan, or why they stopped exploring in unison for so long, or why they restarted at the same time. I thought it was something to do with the trade winds changing, making it impossible, then changing again. What really happened to the Neanderthals and Denisovans? Lots of interesting theories. I like to imagine another universe where there are still many species of humans. DNA says we interbred with them. Who was so vain that thought that song was about them and was correct? Wasn't it Warren Beatty? I thought we already knew. Tylenol killer who poisoned some random people. My theory was someone connected to one of the victims bought Tylenol and spiked a few others on the shelf to make it look like a random attack. Who killed Epstein and all the people involved in his debauchery? It's easy to keep an extortion ring secret. Right now I'd say the amount of removed I'm seeing in this thread. Why the USB cable is always upside down the first time you try to plug it in. I thought the USB cable was always in a superposition until you actually look at it. What happens after death, or exactly what Willis was talking about? The same guy could answer both if you could talk to him. Dark matter and dark energy. In the standard lambda CDM model of cosmology, the mass energy content of the universe is 5% ordinary matter, 26.8% dark matter, and 68.2% a form of energy known as dark energy. Thus dark matter constitutes 85% of the total mass, while dark energy and dark matter constitute 95% of the total mass energy content. The leading explanation is that dark matter is some as yet undiscovered subatomic particle. The other main possibility is that dark matter is composed of primordial black holes. Why are we still changing clocks twice a year when everyone agrees it's stupid? It's really stupid where I live. I'm far enough north that the gain of an hour is lost in a month due to the regression of dawn. Sunrise changes by about 2 minutes per day. The true identity of Master Fard Muhammad. I think you mean Wally Dodd Ford, or Wallace Dodd, or Wally Dodd Fard, or W.D. Fard, or David Fordell, or maybe even Wally Farad. Seriously, the man was a total mystery and no one is even sure how he died. Kadinhi, small town in Kerala state of India. The town is known for having an unusually high number of twins. It has around 2,000 families. There are something around 250 sets of twins legally recorded there. And there could be a lot more, while the national average of twin births is not more than 9 in 1,000 births. In Kadinhi, the number is as high as 45 in 1,000 births. Deleted. What really happened to the Ottawa Indians, and why did Franklin County, Kansas hide that cemetery with all the huge depressions behind the dump? Why did Jotham Meeker and Toy Jones, the half-blood, have such huge headstones, while the handful of many thousand natives had little tiny stones? Why did all the Ottawa's headstones get mashed up when I started asking questions? What happened to Madeleine McCann? The German police are pretty sure they figured out who the murderer is. The Isle of Pines, in the middle of nowhere, is covered with concrete mounds with iron cores that date to 12,000 years ago, long before humans were supposed to know how to do this. And there's no evidence of tools or workers. The indigenous people say it was there long before them. No scientists have been able to put forth a reasonable explanation so far. MH370. It's more or less solved. Only thing that fits all the facts is that the pilot decompressed the plane, which suffocated everyone on board, and then flew it towards Antarctica, where it eventually ran out of fuel and crashed into the South Indian Ocean. Go look at that area on a map. It's a fucking massive ocean. Not all that surprising that they weren't able to find it out there. Here's a couple good write-ups on it. Admiral Malaysia Airlines 77 FAR 5244 BF99. The Atlantic, https://www.theatlantic.com/magazine/archive/2019/07/MH370-malaysia-airlines/590653/close bracket. Removed. I guess my questions would be: WHO spotted her walking in the storm? Did anyone see the driver approach her, or was that all coming from the driver? Double quote. As the other person said, I wouldn't doubt one or both of the parents had something to do with it. What caused the Big Bang? You wouldn't have any other mysteries had that not happened.